Architectural Builders Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
You're very descriptive, so appreciate that knowledge. My question is about surface bolts. And Baldwin in particular, that seems to be kind of a brand I have kind of moved towards. How do those surface bolts stay up when they're at the top of the door? And how do they stay up when you want to open the door so they don't drag the floor?
Well,
is it friction? Is it a detent? Is it a ball bearing that kind of catches in a spot so it can't drop or move?
Friction. Underneath the mounting pads, underneath the, so if the bolt is shaped like the capital letter D, on the flat side, the side that you don't see, inside of the mounting components, there is an inserted spring, there's a piece of high-tech plastic, something that keeps the bolt thrown in any position. It's highly unusual over time for a surface bolt to fatigue to the point where that's a problem.
Okay. Well, cool. I couldn't see it. You're the only one that kind of, when you were showing it, it looked like when you were throwing it back and forth between the holders, it was stopping like it was a catch. But nobody else was showing that, and I couldn't get anybody to give me feedback. So I appreciate your knowledge there. So I'm probably going to go with some kind of a Baldwin oil rub bronze 12-inch. Is there something in mind that you would have that I should look at? I think there was one that had decorative hardware and one that was more plain.
So Baldwin is my personal favorite when it comes to lock sets, latch sets, the Estates line. Nobody can lay a glove on them in terms of fit and finish. When it comes to builders hardware like surface bolts, there are others that you can look at, and I suggest it because that type of hardware from Baldwin is noticeably expensive. And names that I would suggest would be all companies that I represent. I represent Baldwin, IDH. You Need Hardware, and then Deltana. I just shipped some Deltana bolts to the client, came and picked them up. All solid brass, all going to be similar to the Baldwin. And if you would like, send me an email, and I'll reply back with links to these items so that you can make an educated or an informed decision.
So now, I think Corey sent me an email, and I replied to him with my contact information. Did you get that, or did he just give you my phone number?
Oh, in fact, no, I do have it. I do have it.
Yeah, if you could reply with... Yeah, if you could reply, Rich, that'd be fantastic. Because I'm obviously I know that those are a little more expensive, the Baldwins, and that's why I thought, well, maybe they're the ones that they'll stay in place when I open them. My big worry is the bottom one, because one of the doors is got bolts internally, and the other one's a man door, but you can open it if you're like moving furniture in. And so the left door I wouldn't ever open, really. It's the right door that's going to get all the traffic. And I just don't want a surface bolt to drag the floor. So
you want to augment your locking hardware on the active door with surface bolts?
Correct. Because I only have one deadbolt on that door.
Are you expecting forced entry?
I am not, but I want to prevent it.
Well, yeah, I hear you, but my size 10, shoe is a pretty good master key at times. The point I'm trying to make is, Corey forwarded me your phone number in your photograph. So, throwing a lot of hardware on there is going to detract from the clean look of what you already have. Surface bolts will certainly go a long way to help augment, what you're doing. Alignment will probably prove to be reasonably tricky. Of course, you have the secondary problem of now you require 3 knowing acts to exit, at least 3, maybe 4, which is not ideal. And at the end of the day, you could replicate the flush bolt idea, except that if you looked at a catalog from 1905 or 1889, Yale or Sargent or Corbin, you'll see flush bolts that are mortised into the face of the door. So that might be cleaner in the sense that, you'll see it, but it's not this big contraption hanging off. Plus, 12-inch ain't going to work really well on your door height, assuming those are about 8 foot tall.
They're 8 foot, and I can reach a 12-inch bolt, and my wife can as well, and we don't have children. So yeah, I mean, I like the clean look, but honestly, what we've got today, I've got a bar that we can put across it if, we're not not home, now. But, I don't like how that looks per se. I'd rather have the surface bolts, versus a bar across it. So. Oh yeah, no doubt. Sure. So are surface bolts fairly secure? I mean, are they going to prevent, if you're at top and you're at bottom and then you got a deadbolt in the middle, is that, something that would be prevented?
Well, all of that force is going to translate into a very thin piece of architectural metal held in with two number 6 screws.
That's what I worry. So I would really rather have, something that's steel or something that's more beefy, for surface bolts, versus brass.
Yeah, well, sure. The issue with something steel is you won't find anything decorative in a steel base. It needs to be something that can be cast so as to be decorative. Now, what you could possibly do is come up with some strike, a piece of 1/8-inch steel that you might be able to get, into a rectangle and drill some holes and use some number 14 wood screws, that kind of business.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it does go back to, how much, is that the opening that you really need to make absolutely most secure? So a balance between it still looking awesome and functional.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, shoot me your thoughts on those 3 other, and Baldwin, 3 other options.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you kind of understand what I'm looking for. I mean, I want it to look nice, but also, be strength. So, so if anything comes to mind, love to get your input on it.
Yeah. I mean, you could also just add, an additional deadbolt if you wanted. You could even get, technically really fancy where it's, governed by low voltage, so that you don't really see it at all when the door is closed. But then, you've got to get wires to places that they weren't designed to go to.
Yeah, I've got the house has got an alarm system, and the whole fence is. We've got 13 acres, and we've got the whole property fenced. So, but I put a bar across there, and it's 1.5 inches, I think, square tubing. It's in holders on either end, and I don't like the look of it. I thought surface bolts could serve the same purpose with similar protection. So
yeah, that bar's for when you go away for an extended period of time.
100%. So
I would be happy to send you an email tomorrow, no doubt about it.
Okay. Well, Rich, man, I appreciate you calling back. I know it's quitting time in Florida.
I'm done. I'm on the treadmill, so it's nice to have company.
Well, hey, man, I sure appreciate your insight and your help.
All right, sir. Look for an email tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, per the conversation, we discussed surface bolts with the client, and admittedly, I don't love the idea. I think it's going to make the opening a lot clunkier. And let's get the Baldwin catalog opening, it dawns on me that you should probably see what I'm looking at. Here's the image of what the client has. You know, obviously a nice looking entryway, very nice, obviously. Clearly a lock and a deadbolt here, or a latch set. It's probably just a passage. So there's only one security device on here. Very likely a grip handle is what's happening. So an entry grip outside, thumb piece always unlocked with a lever on the inside, as evidenced by this decorative cap here for the bolt that goes through the door. So the client has flush bolts here and here, and I have to admit you've got to be north of 6 foot tall to be able to reach up and manipulate those bolts that are, it depends on how far down they are. They could be 18 inch or 24 inch, or maybe they're just at 12 inch. I think the client said 12 inch. So there's going to be flush bolts on the inside of each of these doors, and so let's take a look at what that's going to be something like. Okay, so client's got security here, and quite likely security here in the edge of the inactive door. Client's clearly looking to add security to the surface of this door as well. Okay. All right, so in terms of Baldwin, Baldwin is beautiful. It's all the material is quite beautiful. And the client's original question was how the bolts stay up and down, and we'll get to that part as well. Dawns on me that it's not actually very obvious, because I get that question somewhat often. These are Cremone bolts that Baldwin sells. You'll see these on 19th century construction with some frequency. Builder's hardware is going to be near the back of the catalog. And I've had to switch to a more modern version of the catalog. Page 208, surface bolts. Yeah, so here we go. There's just not a lot of options in terms of design. So this is just going to be a surface-mounted bolt, is what it is. Available in 6, 8, 12, 18, and 24 inch. That accounts for a client's height of the door concern, where you're going to be able to grab that. Also, some people want a longer bolt down below as well, maybe not 6 or 8 inch, but 12 or taller, so they don't have to reach down so far. Plus, also with a taller door, your hardware should grow with it as well, just so that it's proportional to the overall size. If you ended up putting a 6-inch bolt down here and a 8-inch up here, it might look a little petite. So they have their 0379 through 0383 versions that are here. There is what is called the modern surface bolt, but this would be thoroughly inadequate for this application. The strikes that are going to come with this series of ornamental surface bolt, they're going to look like these strikes, the 0310 strikes. This could be really good for a Dutch door application. This could be a it says mortise. I was about to say it's a mortise strike. This universal strike, a mortise strike could be installed on a push side application. The universal strike could be installed on a pull side application. An angle strike could be installed in a push side application. This would be really good for a Dutch door application. You would mortise this into the top of the lower leaf of a Dutch, is where you would see that. So those are the strike options there. Now, I had also mentioned to the client simply that there were options outside of Baldwin, and they are, as I had said, my personal favorite. I use them every time that I can in my own personal work, but also when working with clients. Their fit and finish, their availability, well, generally their availability, their technical support, and the overall caliber of what you get from them is pretty exceptional. Another manufacturer I mentioned was IDH. I mentioned IDH because there are other options in terms of design. Baldwin features one. And when I say options in terms of design, you can see the mounting pieces here, components are the same, but the knobs are different. Okay. You can also see that there are more decorative versions, standard guides, which would be over here, ornamental guides over here. So IDH is a good option to look at as well. And then I also suggested Deltana. They also have lots of surface bolts. What is nice about Deltana is that they also have some offset versions as well. So an offset version of a surface bolt is going to be really appropriate in an installation where a surface bolt is just going to be straight like this. Mounting guides, that kind of business. But there are also offset versions of these as well. And the reason that those are nice is because you're going to have applications where you want to get the area that you're bolting to moved away from something. You know, if you have, here's your door, and you've got a threshold here. Now let's say you've got a threshold that ends here. Well, getting something to bolt here is not really awesome. But if you can get that offset bolt to get out over the threshold and then take the mortise strike and mortise that down into the floor, you'd probably be in better shape. So offset versions are nice for that reason. There are times when they really make sense. So Deltana has a comprehensive offering of surface bolts as well. Then the other name I mentioned was You Need Hardware. And they also have, we're getting to variations on a theme at this point, but nonetheless they are a company, a supplier of ours who does offer surface bolts. And their material is not awful. I've sold it with success in the past. People seem to like them. And what's noteworthy of You Need Hardware is it's not everywhere that you can get. Bear with me. It's not everywhere that you can get a 48-inch tall long surface bolt. They've got them. Okay. 36-inch as well. So if you're needing something really long, I think of You Need Hardware all the time. So those are the options there. Now, I had suggested to the client flush bolts, but let's talk specifically about that suggestion.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
All right, I had mentioned to the client that they consider taking flush bolts and install them into the face of the door. Now, a flush bolt's going to always be installed in the edge of the door. Almost always. But not always. I've literally seen them. I'm trying to find an image of one installed. Yeah, well, I could have just shown you a template, I suppose, but you know, this, yeah, okay, well this is good. So here's where a flush bolt normally goes, mortised into the edge of the door. And here is an image of them installed in the face of the door. Now, it's a flush bolt, but the terminology is not correct for this. This would be properly called an extension bolt. And if you were to watch, one thing I like to do when I'm watching a really old movie is I like to look at the door hardware. Marx Brothers, 1930s, checking out the doorknobs and the hinges to see what was done 100 years ago. So I was suggesting to the client that they abandon the idea of large, clunky, inelegant surface bolts and use flush bolts that would be mortised to the face of the door. So I also had mentioned to the client that I have old catalogs showing this hardware. There's a Yale catalog from 1910, and I've got it pulled up. On the 300th page, we've got flush bolts here. Bolts flush. That's going to be mortised to the edge of the door. Well, I don't actually see anywhere where it says that's mortised to the edge of the door, but let's go with it being mortised to the edge of the door because we get to extension bolts. These are bolts that would be mortised to the face of the door, except that they have them both surface mounted, and then they have those that would be intended to be mortised to the edge, mortised into the face of the door, but they're not flush bolts. Flush bolts go in the edge of the door, extension bolts would go to the face of the door. I would think this would be far more elegant so that the client yields some type of look like this, again, rather than a big clunky surface bolt to the outside of the door. You know, you can get the hardware in an oil rubbed, this is probably oil rubbed, and mortise it right to the face of the door, and all you would see would be a 6 3/4 by 1 inch faceplate there and there. That's all you would see. I might argue that I'd put it at the top only. But our Yale 1910 catalog shows the concept. Now, occasionally, I'll get an email from a client looking for this hardware, and more so, variants of extension bolts. The issue is this catalog is from 1910, and I don't know of anyone who... Trimco may make something like this. I'd have to look in their catalog, but I don't recall having ever sold it. What the client could also do is add Cremone bolts if they wanted it to look differently, but at that point, if you were doing Cremone bolts, I would have not have used this hardware really at all, and would have just have had a cylinder on the outside and then that long Cremone bolt on the face of each door. That would be quite elegant. That would be not unusual to see. Just because we're looking at an arch-top door, these are problematic in lots of instances. Instances where 70% of the weight of the door is held by that top hinge. Well, you got a lot more door up here than what you bargained for when you have an arch-top door. They're clearly beautiful, but the hinge up here gets more of a workout. Also, adding door closers is more challenging because closers really need rectangular surfaces to be installed on. It's done, but it's not very elegant to get a door closer installed on these sorts of items. And then, of course, adding flush bolts to the edge of the door. Now, this is arch top. Okay, if you arch your eyebrow, you're arching it. Round top, where it's half of a circle, is a much more complex thing to get hardware installed on. So arch top's not so bad, but also with arch top doors, you have to be really mindful what your inset is. And the inset is the distance from the face of the casing to the face of the door. And what I'm driving at here is I've been involved in a couple of projects where this is a wall section. And the door, this is the wall, looking at the end of the wall. This can be 8 inch thick, let's say. Well, your door frame is set in here. Your door frame is on the edge of the wall. You've got your casing out here. Depending on the dimension, here's your frame. And here is your stop. Here is your door. Now, in an arch-top application, when that door goes to swing, depending on what the effective inset dimension here, this is casing, from here to here, this part of the door can end up hitting on this part of the wall. Or, said another way, if this was an arch-top opening and this dimension was now 18 inch, and you were setting that door way down in the center, like this, where your inset is now 7.5 inch, this door is going to get only partially open before it's going to hit up here. I've seen it. I can think of 4 instances off the top of my head where I've had to help clients navigate around that problem. And one job that we did for a guy in California, it was hitting when the door got to about 75-degree open. So what we did was sold him 1.5-inch offset pivots, and he was able to mortise it such that the vertical axis of pivoting allowed that door to kick out and around that, and it worked perfectly. He was thrilled with that solution. So I might consider a more elegant solution like that. And also, the reason I would is because I have the ability to bolt the active door into the same surface that the inactive door is already bolting into, for the most part. You know, your back set's going to be a little different on the face of the door than it would be in mortised on the edge of the door. So that could be something worth investigating as well. So let's wrap up this video. One more component. I'm just simply going to show you the mechanism by which bolts stay up when they're supposed to stay up and not creep down when they're not supposed to.
If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, what I have is a Rockwood 585 in a 12-inch here. This is just, I walked to the shelf. This was the first one I found, surface bolt. So it would be quite ineffective if your bolt would creep up or down, unlock or lock, or fall to the point where it hits the floor and now you gouge you gouge the floor, whatever the case is. These guides, as IDH calls them, they just don't slide. It takes force to actually move them. I have a force gauge, but I'm just not going to go through the effort of telling you how much force it takes to actually move that. But you can clearly see here that there's something here. This piece right here. This piece right here. This is the back side of the bolt. Whether it be a modern style or a commercial style bolt, this can be padlocked, by the way, or it be something more elegant like the Baldwin, the IDH, the Deltana, the Uneed. The concept is the same. There's some restrictor back here, is what it is, so that it just doesn't move without you intending for it to move. It would be incorrect to say that in 30 plus years I've never heard of this complaint, but there has been 1 or maybe 2 instances over 30 plus years where a client said, I've got to replace this bolt because it's not staying locked anymore, it's falling out of the keeper. Yeah, that does happen. I've heard of it, but so infrequent that I chalk it up to like anything else in the world. Things wear out, things need to be replaced. And that's just the bottom line on that. So that's how that bolt stays up. We're going to send off to the client, as we committed to do so, some options. And if there's anything else to report, we will do so. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video.
Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.